When you recognize who belongs in your life, you create a team whose potential and coherence is incredible. Join us for this conversation about Gene Key 44, woven together with the wisdom of the Sabian symbols, Scorpio 8 through 13. Welcome to the Free to Be Free portal. I'm Julia Ananda, your host, and I'm here with Mystic and Gene Key's guide, Margaret Miller. Margaret, it's wonderful to be with you.
Hi, Julia. It's wonderful to be with you as well. Yes, Gene Key 44. It moves from the shadow of interference to the Siddhi of Synarchy. And it is the pathway of teamwork. And, this is it's so present in my awareness right now. I have all kinds of things that are helping me to really feel into what that word teamwork means, and also what interference is. Like, what is the shadow of interference? And so I'm excited to see what we come up with today, because because I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of it in a lot of ways, and really and I think a lot of people are, and probably will resonate with this as we unpack it a little bit. Um, I'm going to start with the shadow of interference. And this interference is really, it shows up in our lives in various ways, and how we can recognize it a lot of times is through we either show up as distrustful of people. Like, we may have a distrust of people that's sort of rooted in our childhood or in our past relationships, or things that didn't work out, and so we tend to put up a wall, or are guarded in our relationships. And that energy, that is a frequency that really interferes with any kind of real and true connection and communication. Or it can show up as um, like misjudging, right? Like, for instance, you end a relationship because the other person had these habits, or had this way of interacting that was really um, not compatible with you, and so you end the relationship, and then you get into another relationship, and lo and behold, that same pattern appears again in the other person. And so it's not being able to recognize the warning signs, about that person, but also, like, we kind of take our stuff with us. And so if we haven't resolved that pattern in ourselves, we're going to play it out in the next relationship and the next relationship. And maybe not just our in personal relationships, but a lot of times people will joke, if they're working in an office and they can recognize their family dynamics, right? In an office, right? There's the one who acts like my dad. There's the one that acts like my mom. There's the one that's my sibling, and so this is all because of this pattern of interference, right? And the interference is just like all of the other shadows. It's a frequency of fear. And a lot of times, this is really, this is something that we come in with, that it's actually embedded in our DNA, right? Our ancestry and their fears and their, situations and experiences of being betrayed, or um, being on the wrong side of something, that carry through into our and the collective DNA as well, right? And so the shadow of interference is basically that fear of Well, it's the illusion of separation for one thing, right? And it's trying to protect whatever identity that we have, whatever we think is our identity, because there's a great fear of losing our our identity when we merge with another, right? When we come together with anyone else in any kind of relationship. And that interference is that frequency of fear that really causes us to see people through a lens or a bias that that sets us both up, or each person up, to play out whatever the repressed or the unconscious patterns are that we haven't cleared in this life, right? So that interference is, I like to look at it as just a fear, like that fear of that I'll repeat that pattern, or that I will not be safe, right? And so in the place of fear, we can't recognize our true, uh, our cohorts, or our true people, because we are, what happens when we're in fear, we're guarded, and we're looking for something to be wrong. And that's where falling in love comes into play, where we kind of we miss all of the signs and signals, because something, and we may think it's karmic, right? Or it could be that something draws us together, right? We have an attraction, and we don't see the things that might be, you know, warning signs for us, or whatever, until that initial chemical reaction has worn off, at least to some degree. And but that's sort of that kind of feels like a negative spin on this. But the fear frequency, right? So this interference is sort of built into us, and we have to recognize it and be able to begin to change that in ourselves, and recognize the patterns that we act out. Do I go into a group of people, that I'm hoping to be in community with, and have this fear? Am I afraid that I'm going to be let down, or I'm going to be hurt, or I'm going to be, ostracized, or whatever? That's going to set me up for a recurring pattern that just isn't helpful, right? That doesn't have coherence. So in order to come into awareness of who is supposed to be in our lives, and who are the people that we resonate with the most, we have to come out of that fear frequency, and start, start vibrating from a higher frequency. And of course, that's, coming into our hearts and coming into love. And from that place, we engage. And this is, I'm kind of remembering something that I just listened to last night. But when we engage our heart center, when we have heart coherence and are coming from the center of our hearts, we have access to all of our physical senses and all of our multidimensional senses as well. And in the Gene Keys book, Richard Rudd talks about this as being olfactory. Like, we can smell the people who belong to us, or who, belong in our sphere of influence. And it's not just smelling through the nose. It's not like just what perfume they wear or something like that. It's this smelling through our whole body, like picking up the signals that say, guess what? I come from the same fractal. I come from the same soul group, you might say. And we can, um, we can mesh together in a way that is positive and will have really amazing results, right? So when we open ourselves up, when we really come from our hearts and take the time to feel into it, we know. And I think I hope that almost everybody has had that experience of knowing, and a lot of times it'll come as a recognition, like I know you from somewhere, or like you are so familiar to me, and that automatically opens us up in a way that says, yes, this person, is somebody that I could interact with. And so thinking about the gift of teamwork, it's not teamwork sounds like we're, working together or in business, and certainly it could be that. But any group, our family group, usually that's not the case, because usually the family that we incarnated into, that's the one that we have the most lessons to work through. And unless we've done all of that work, and everybody's done all that work, then that's not necessarily the shining example of teamwork. But it can be, our family of our heart, the family that we create, and we choose the people, because we are choosing, right? We have the ability to choose who we invite into our lives and who we don't, uh, beyond the family that we were born into. And, that was a different agreement done at an earlier time. So when we are harmonized with another being, when both of us are in heart coherence and both of us have those skills, and to bring ourselves into that place of really listening through our hearts, really receiving the other person through our hearts, and speaking from that place as well, and have that we don't have that anxiety about what how we're gonna how what we say is going to be received, or any of those things. Like when we know that our authentic self is accepted there, right, with this other person or other people, then this incredible synergy begins to happen, and you're able to work or play or be in a love relationship in a way that flows. And it doesn't mean that there won't be disagreements or things that have to be worked out, but it does mean that there's an incredible potential for any kind of a challenge to become a really beautiful and loving learning experience for all concerned. And so that teamwork, is such it's a beautiful word, and it's a beautiful ideal. And we do create that through our choice. If we're not operating at the gift frequency, we are not going to attract people into our lives who uh, match what we're about, or match what our dreams and visions are, right? And so, but once we do attract those people into our lives, then it's like any relationships, it's a work in progress. right? And as this teamwork develops, whether it's in a family or a group or a business or whatever, a community, as it develops and begins to really start to hum, right? As the team starts to hum, then there's this potential for synarchy. And I didn't bring this in at the first, but all of our systems and all of our like even in the natural world, there is a hierarchical structure, right? And it's not that hierarchies are bad in and of themselves. It's you know they can be unhelpful when misused, right? When the power is um, not properly distributed or distributed to the wrong people or however that works. And so the synarchy is this idea that we're all leading ourselves, but we are in communion or in uh, concert with each other in a way that creates this great symphony, right? That creates this great music. Like we have our own tune, and if we sing our own tune, I think this is an example from the Gene Keys, by the way. So I'll just say thanks, Richard Rudd. But that if we're playing our own tune, then we have a nice tune. But if we join together or we're playing an instrument and we play a beautiful tune, that's just our individual tune. But then how about we join together with a whole, let's say we're playing the violin, we have a whole string section, right? And the whole string section, the cellos and the violins and the violas and the bass, they all start to work in synergy. They all start to work together. And then pretty soon you begin to realize that there's this whole orchestra playing with all of these different instruments, and we can harmonize and create this great symphony or this immense piece of music that is something so far beyond the sum of its parts, right? So that's sort of an example of what synarchy is. And and I think just like all of the siddhis, it's really important to remember that they already exist, that already is here, and that we are already potentially operating in that synarchy. And it's the interference field that we create through our shadows and our fears that keeps us from recognizing that. And that, at some point, maybe way down the line in our future history, we will all know that and begin to work as a whole, not just as humanity. I mean, that's one thing, but as a collective whole on this planet with all living beings and everything, and the planets and the stars in our solar system and whatever multiverses. That this is all a pattern that is deep within us, like it's deep within our very cellular structure, right? It's those fractal patterns begin in the dividing of our cells, right? And so they're present in the looking at a galaxy or a universe, right? So the macrocosm and the microcosm are mirroring each other, and we all are part of the smallest thing, and we all are a part of the infinite as well. So that's what I have to say about Gene Key 44 right now. I had a great story that I wanted to tell, but I think I'm going to save it for another time. and just go on and look at the Sabian symbols that are associated with this gene key 44. So Scorpio 8 through 13. And Scorpio, again, is really deeply sensitive, deeply mystical, deeply aware. Like that's at its highest frequencies of Scorpio is this, that's sort of what we were talking about, that olfactory sense where all of the senses are online and can really receive information from sources that maybe are unseen or, and that's it's a beautiful energy. And it has a lot to do with the thinning, this is the time of the thinning of the veil. Scorpio season is sort of considered, right, the thinning of the veil, when it's easier to connect with those beyond the veil or with um, cosmic frequencies and so forth. So the first one is a high mountain lake, Scorpio 8. A high mountain lake is bathed in the full moonlight. And so this is the illumination of the soul by transcendent wisdom, like right, like by recognizing the connectedness, like recognizing and receiving that wisdom through stillness, through that still water and the light reflecting onto the lake. So it's sort of a quiet touch with cosmic strength. So this symbol really talks about deepening into peace, deepening into that still, quiet place within so that we can develop compassion. We can develop compassion and be able to read people, be able to feel situations and understand what is required of us and what service that we can provide, right? And it's a beautiful symbol. I love this one. So Scorpio 9 is a very different symbol. A dentist is repairing teeth ruined by civilized habits. That's the original translation of that. Um, and so it's talking about like having a creative ingenuity, bringing service to others uh, to help to fix problems that are pretty much self-created. And so it has a sort of a double meaning here where it's like the dentist is being of service, but if we were in, you know, in truth, if we had taken care of our teeth, if we had taken care of ourselves, they wouldn't require that service, right? And so it's really looking at both of those things where are we taking care of things, and it applies to everything, right? If we're taking care of our lives properly, if we're taking care of ourselves, the people around us, our possessions, whatever, whatever needs to be our animal friends, our gardens, whatever it is, if we're taking care of them, then there won't be that need for some other kind of solution, right? The problems will be less. And I think that it speaks to that first one too. It's like we know we can't do everything and we can't be everything to everybody, but we do know where we can be of service. And we also can, when we pay attention, know when something is out of balance and we should really brush our teeth, so to speak. Oh, okay. So Scorpio 10, a fellowship supper reawakens unforgettable inner ties. So you can see here that it says it right there. This is a group of people that have come together in that energy, that gift of teamwork, and they're celebrating their connectedness, and they are bringing into their awareness all of the things that they have done together, and the good memories and probably the bad memories too, and really um, channeling their energy in sort of in gratitude of that connectedness and that teamwork. Okay, so beautiful symbol. Then a Scorpio 11, a drowning man is rescued, brought back to the crowd. So this is talking about the innate capacity for human beings to know when someone else is in danger and to know that it's up to them to help, right? This is the spark of human kindness, but also just that quality within us that takes action even without maybe thinking of their own safety in helping another who's in danger, right? And so it's really bringing to light this inherent courage that we truly have, and that can be um, cultivated to reach more people, or to be more sort of universally applicable, right? We can apply it to more things in our life, and to help be helpful and be of service, and know when people need help, and to be able to and willing to offer that help. So that I think to me speaks of, and to be, and then to be able to coalesce the people around us who can also help, right? And to become the team that helps. So then Scorpio 12 is sort of an evolution of this, where its high officials are gathered together at an important embassy ball. Okay. And so this is sort of a social recognition of accomplishment, for one thing, but it's also this coming together of people of a certain social group that may or may not be a team, right? They may not have teamwork. And what is required in this circumstance is diplomacy, right? To be able to act in the accustomed ways, because it's going to be highly structured in these accustomed ways that allow for people to communicate and to recognize their differences as well as their similarities in a socially acceptable way, in a safe way, really, so that where no one is threatened, right? And it's an embassy ball, so it's the ambassadors of those nations, right, or of those places that are coming together. They may have very, very different views, but they have to be able to coalesce, and maybe in some circumstances recognize who their true allies are. And so it's sort of a powerful symbol for this gene key. Then lastly, we have Scorpio 13. In a laboratory, an inventor is near success. And so this is talking about like the the scientist or the inventor is trying to create something that's going to be of use for humanity. And I think the part that relates to this gene key is about service. Like when we come into the gift frequency of any of the gene keys, service comes into play. And it's not necessarily, it's not like we have to be serving everybody else all the time or anything like that, but is what we're doing serving us? And is it also serving others? Right? Asking that question, is it good for us and is it good for others? Then good, do it, Like, is this invention, is what we're inventing just good for us? Can we kind of make it pretend that it's good for other people, or is it really actually of service to everybody else? So I think that's a beautiful symbol for this as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting symbol. And when you said that the inventor was trying to invent something to help humanity, my mind went, oh, that's an interesting concept. I had assumed the inventor was trying to invent something to get rich.
Yeah. Oh, how, yeah. Isn't that powerful, right? So, right. And in many cases, I guess that's could be true. Just look around you. Right?
Right. But then
Yeah,
you brought in, is it good for me and is it good for others?
right. Yeah,
And what a
yeah.
beautiful way to be able to identify. Yeah, if we're serving the whole.
Yes. Yeah. And all of that to me, I have always been beating the drum of heart coherence and heart-centered awareness. That's sort of one of my main missions in life, right, is to bring myself continually into that heart space and to invite other people to practice that as well. And I think that, this gene key really, really talks about this in so many ways, where we are the gene key and these Sabian symbols, where we begin in our own heart coherence to create this field around ourselves that is very loving. And through the creation of that field, we attract to ourselves other people who are very loving. But we also ignite within them, if they're not, we may have the potential of igniting that spark within their sacred heart that allows them to begin to experience uh, more coherence. Just being in a room with somebody who is fully in their heart, that you come into coherence with that and you feel better, right? And everybody else feels better as well.
Yeah, and even if people come together and that's their intention, they can all meet there, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's even more powerful because then you're talking about the potential for synarchy, for that great symphony where that love is just exponential and pouring out into the world.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yes, it's beautiful. Margaret, thank you for bringing through this beautiful wisdom for us. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.